SCP-6004. Despite the best efforts of the Foundation, SCP-6004 remains uncontainable at such a time that drastically more powerful containment measures are made available, or SCP-6004 returns to an inactive state of its own accord. As such, current containment procedures revolve around the preparation for such a time and minimizing collateral damage caused by its current state. SCP-6004 is to be constantly monitored via remaining functional satellite imagery, with satellite arrays to be appropriated from world governments if necessary. Constant reports of its location, direction, speed, and activities are to be provided at all times to better aid the global task forces in evacuation of populations from likely attack sites and impact zones. Due to the volume of casualties, civilians with better chance are prioritized at the desecration of task force members on the ground. Aid shelters and temporary housing are to be provided in rural, remote, and off-the-grid areas, including small towns, Foundation containment sites, and settlements previously attacked by SCP-6004. To avoid drawing attention of SCP-6004, all Foundation sites are to minimize pollution and carbon emissions as best as possible, with the aim of switching to solar, geothermal, or nuclear power as soon as is feasible. Research into the most effective anomalous containment measures and weaponry is to be carried out on Foundation and global occult coalition sites globally, with both organizations to collaborate on these projects. Amnestic production is increased by 230% in order to return the world unawareness of the veil following SCP-6004's successful containment. SCP-6004 is a massive serpentine entity of variable size, measuring between 0.2 and 1900 kilometers in length, with mass proportional to its length. While its physiology varies from resembling various Australian ophidians, its coloration has consistently been primarily black with dull prismatic stripes running vertically down its length, with a pale underbelly. SCP-6004 possesses a pair of horns and a large array of teeth. More than that would be expected or biologically possible in non-anomalous ophidians. Horns feature thousands of engraved depictions of wildlife. SCP-6004 is observed to move at abnormally fast speeds, often in excess of 1,200 kilometers per hour on land and 2,800 kilometers per hour underwater. This movement often creates large rifts in the terrain and tsunamis in the water, along with sonic concussions in both in and out of the water. SCP-6004 exhibits strength and durability far beyond what its proportions would suggest, having a bite force strong enough to crush key units, destroy mountains, and throw itself into the upper troposphere. It is able to fly at this altitude in a similar fashion to swimming. By maintaining consciousness, SCP-6004 is able to alter weather patterns and atmospheric conditions on a global scale at will, primarily by exerting a mild cooling effect on the Earth's average temperature by 2 degrees Celsius. This effect varies in intensity and effect locally, with the most significant changes being intensified snowfall in glacial areas and poles, increased rainfall in arid areas, and severe thunderstorms globally. The most directly threatening use of SCP-6004's ability to control weather conditions is when directly within its line of sight, often in response to outside stimulus or its theoretical emotional state. This most commonly takes the form of severe thunderstorms, hurricane generation, torrential rain, and the generation of extremely large waves. It uses this ability primarily as a form of offense in the area, typically striking cities, mines, and power plants with severe weather events before striking physically. Rain generated in this form has been observed to spontaneously generate plant life within its area of effect. This flora has been observed to grow extremely rapidly, and is at times hostile to human life. SCP-6004 possesses several powerful anomalous properties. SCP-6004 possesses several powerful anomalous qualities regarding itself. Thaumaturgical scans have shown that SCP-6004 possesses a form of selective tangibility, which has been observed at times of attack. It often uses this ability when swallowing organic materials, primarily animals, while avoiding swallowing earth or buildings. SCP-6004 is known to consume living human persons with besieged and populated areas, and is often observed regurgitating various fauna local to the immediate area. Addendum 6000-1 Discovery and Early Investigation into SCP-6004. A statement from Site Director Alan Tiballs. Prior to the discovery of SCP-6004 in the March of 2020, There was much discussion within the Foundation regarding how much humanitarian aid to provide towards fighting the 2019 to 2020 Australian bushfires. We of course knew that they were not our problem to deal with, being the result of non-anomalous climate change and poor government action. But it is human nature to want to help one another, and in the case of those of us at Australian sites, our homelands. Still, despite my own feelings towards the matter, we at Site 40 are spread too thin to offer any more than nominal support to firefighters and rescue groups, particularly with the growing concern that we had towards the unusual seismic activity being felt around the Australian continent. We knew it was anomalous. Emails and communications were sent back and forth discussing what to do. Ultimately, survey teams were dispatched to find their source, but due to the fires, these efforts were less than successful. We decided to wait until things calmed down before trying again. We all know what a mistake that was. The lesson to be learned here is simple. We need to stop working around the poor decisions made by a non-anomalous world, and act more directly. Had we done that, we wouldn't be in the mess we now find ourselves. Discovery of SCP-6004. Beginning in December 1988, unusual seismic activity began to be detected throughout mainland Australia, and in particular around the eastern coast of New South Wales. Initially, this was not believed to be anomalous and was ignored. However, over the following years, the seismic activity grew in intensity and in frequency, until finally in 2019 it was decided that investigators would be dispatched from Site 40 to investigate. Investigation shows that the source of seismic activity was located within the Wallaby National Park, an area comprised of 501,703,000 hectares of wilderness located between the Blue Mountains. Investigations were halted before more precise measurements to be taken by the 2019 to 2020 bushfire season, when intense wildfires affected the area in question, and it was decided that the investigation would resume upon the fires being put under control. While waiting for conditions to improve drastically, more intense seismic activity was detected from within the area, culminating on October 2nd, 2020, when firefighter Mark Delaney was reported to have disobeyed orders while attempting to rescue a panicked civilian who had fled from a dangerous terrain within the Wallaby National Park. The subsequent events led to SCP-6004 emerging from a subterranean cavern and departing the area. Foundation investigation into this event uncovered the remains of Mr. Delaney pinned beneath a large granite boulder located in close proximity to the ruined entrance of a large subterranean cavern, surrounded by evidence of rock slides and an emergence event. The examination of Mr. Delaney's remains revealed a portable video camera was worn on his helmet, and captured the events following his attempted rescue as of the yet unknown civilian leading up to the emergence of SCP-6004. A transcript of the recovered footage follows. Footage begins showing Mark Delaney amongst other firefighters standing among several parked fire trucks. Firefighters can be seen attempting to suppress intense fire fronts with high-pressure hoses. The visibility is poor due to smoke and reflected light from the intense flames. Mr. Delaney is requesting support from another firefighter and retrieving a ladder from the fire truck, when an unidentified woman is seen running towards the flames. The woman appears unable to hear Mr. Delaney, and is highly panicked state. She continues into the woodland with speed, with Mr. Delaney giving chase. Another firefighter can faintly be heard calling to him for him to stop. Camera's view is largely obscured by smoke and embers as Mr. Delaney enters the woodland. The path appears wide, but is surrounded by intense flames. All that can be heard is the roar of the flames. Mr. Delaney continues to chase after the woman, occasionally swearing. Camera jolts violently for 8 seconds, causing Mr. Delaney to fall. He returns to his feet and resumes running. Mr. Delaney occasionally loses sight of the woman, running for an additional 83 seconds, before entering a clearing on the edge of the ravine. Past the ravine, a mass of flaming wilderness can be seen. The unidentified woman can be seen towering at the edge of the ravine. Mr. Delaney approaches the woman, grabbing her and examining her. She appears hysterical and unresponsive to Mr. Delaney's questioning. Mr. Delaney was slowing out of the flame, presumably into a fireman's carry. The camera swings over the edge of the ravine, showing a large reptilian mass partially exposed by a fissure in the ground. The reptilian mass shifts, with the movement seemingly causing another earth tremor. Mr. Delaney stumbles, hanging onto the ground. A jutting ledge of the opposite side of the ravine splits from the surrounding earth, with several flaming trees falling into the scaled mass. The mass flinches out of the way of the burning vegetation, and much more severe tremors begin. An extremely loud roaring can be heard, cutting the audio for the remainder of the footage. The scaled mass retreats beneath the earth. The camera looks towards the sky, showing several lightning flashes through the smoke rain beginning to fall. Camera shape presumed to be a result of the earth tremors worsens as the ravine returns to view. A much larger mass emerges from the earth, resulting in the upheaval of a significant quantity of stone and earth. Frame-by-frame analysis shows this is the head of SCP-6004, on fire and visibly roaring. Mr. Delaney and the unidentified woman are thrown back, with the camera pointed to the sky. SCP-6004 can be seen rising into the air before disappearing into the smoke. Torrential rain begins to fall into the frame, and the flames begin to recede. End of log. Following the emergence of SCP-6004, severe thunderstorms rapidly formed over the bushfire-affected areas in Australia, effectively dousing them by mid-March. While the Foundation began to track SCP-6004, investigation revealed that areas affected by these thunderstorms began to exhibit anomalously rapid plant growth. Additionally, both Foundation and mundane weather monitoring organizations detected a reverse of global warming trends. Addendum 3000-2 Early behavior of SCP-6004. Initially, SCP-6004 remained airborne within these thunderstorms, which progressively expanding in area began appearing further and further from the location of its origin point. Foundation monitors were quickly realized that the anomalous rains formed by SCP-6004 were mainly forming above areas affected by desertification and deforestation. During the initial phase of SCP-6004 remaining within Australian borders, these storms covered thousands of square kilometers of farmland, forests, residential areas, and cities. It was accompanied by large-scale destruction of property as large trees displaced structures. Multiple Foundation sites were mobilized to aid in the search, rescue, and rehabilitation efforts in aid of those affected by this event, with Global Occult Coalition forces offering support. Meanwhile, multiple unsuccessful efforts were made by the Foundation to neutralize SCP-6004, which had been determined to be the logical cause of these events. His attempts were typically met with violence from SCP-6004, often in the form of lightning strike or bites. It was during one of these failed attempts that SCP-6004 was first observed to attack a human settlement. On March 27, 2020, SCP-6004 directly attacked the city of Canberra. At 10:47 a.m., intense thunderstorms formed over the city, with wind speeds measuring over 140 kilometers per hour. This was promptly followed by SCP-6004 descending from the cloud canopy and making landfall. Having gained an unknown size and mass, it proceeded to strike and bite the ground across the city, swallowing a great measure of infrastructure as well as the city's inhabitants. Notably, SCP-6004 targeted the Parliament House in particular, flinging most of the building and its occupants into the air with extreme force, with some debris and individuals later being seen orbiting Earth. This attack prompted response from multiple Foundation mobile task forces, including both ETA-5, Jaeger bombers, and Tau-5. But by time of arrival, SCP-6004 had departed and 74% of Canberra had been destroyed, with 197,728 persons missing. No dead bodies were found. Any survivors were subjected to mass amnestation with the cover of story of an asteroid impact. Despite renewed efforts from both Foundation and the GOC to neutralize, redirect, or otherwise contain SCP-6004, it continued to attack human settlements, largely targeting cities, mines, areas of intense population, and coal-fired power plants. Each of these attacks resulted in the majority of the population of a given area being consumed by SCP-6004, with surviving CCTV footage showing SCP-6004 to be simultaneously tangible and intangible as it visibly phased through structures believed to have been deliberately attacked by the entity. Following these attacks, SCP-6004 has always been observed to travel to remote locations and regurgitate consumed materials. Ensuring investigation into these sightings showed drastically increased wildlife populations in areas where SCP-6004 was seen to vomit, as well as increased fertility in the soil. Due to the scale of the damage caused by SCP-6004, survivors began to be housed in safer areas of locations previously attacked by SCP-6004. Temporary power sources became necessary on a large scale due to disruption in power grids, with many turning to solar power. During resettlement, many survivors and Foundation staff reported a large increase in populations of native wildlife, which did not interfere with resettlement efforts. In late February, the Foundation, the Global Occult Coalition, Marshall Clutter, and Dark Ltd., and a major sect of the Church of the Broken God came to a truce as to determine the method of control and containment of SCP-6004. A think tank was organized involving various experts from across the aforementioned organizations to try and establish a working theory of the nature of SCP-6004. Each group independently presented noteworthy similarities between SCP-6004 and Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime stories of the Rainbow Serpent. Research into all available folklore and consultation with relevant unaffiliated persons was initiated with the goal to find a ritual or other avenue of interference that could be used in the containment of the entity. Parallel think tank, the Foundation and Global Occult Coalition began expedited development into experimental weaponry, designed with assumptions that SCP-6004 shared metaphysical similarities with. This project came to be known as Project Mongoose. Addendum 6004-3. Discoveries of SCP-6004 attack after effects. Following the destruction of Sydney, an investigatory unit operating out of Site-40 were deployed to the area in an attempt to gather any information possible about SCP-6004 and its effects on the areas attacked by it. This was the first major city to be destroyed by SCP-6004. It was hoped that insignificant information would be discovered. At 3:21 a.m., Survey Team 40 arrived in northern Sydney and were instructed to head for Rushcutter's Bay via the city center, as the destruction was partially intense in the former region. Particularly intense in the former region. Survey Team 40 was instructed to document and mark the locations of any noticeable anomalies that resulted from SCP-6004's attack, as well as mark survivors' locations with flares for Foundation rescue teams. The following is a video log taken from Captain John Vercoe's body camera from the resulting events, with the relevant sections removed for brevity's sake. Date: April 4th, 2020. Exploration Team, Survey Team 40. In one of the Foundation's recorded expeditions into the SCP-6004 affected zone, Survey Team 40 was sent into the ruins of Sydney, a city now overtaken by aggressive plant growth and rewilded megafauna. Among the ruins they encountered koalas, where none should be, snakes that watched them pass, and extinct creatures such as the Diprotodon and Procoptodon, giant wombats and kangaroos, alive again and were reshaped by the serpent. Things escalated when a Thylacoleo, an ancient marsupial lion, ambushed one of the kangaroos, killing it in front of the team. The team recovered the remains. They discovered something far more disturbing than a creature: a tattoo on the animal's brow, in human-style ink, attached to a missing tattoo artist believed to have died during the SCP-6004 emergence. It is now believed that all the animals emerging in the wake of SCP-6004 attacks are people that have been transfigured into wildlife within SCP-6004 before being regurgitated. Statement from Site Director Alan Tiballs, June 5th, 2020. Things haven't gone well. From the total loss of Australia, the discovery that it's eating us and vomiting us up as animals, and the veil of secrecy being annihilated, it's been a bad few months. I know many of you don't believe that we can turn this around, but you're wrong. The Foundation has always managed to tip the scales in our favor. Time and time again, we have contained the uncontainable and recontained Dylan as escaped. We have saved humanity time and time again from extinction. We have handled the whims of mad gods and bent the will of world governments. We have restarted the world a time or two. So I said this: we will rebuild from what the snake has destroyed. We will find its weakness, and we will walk it away. We will begin again, using anomalous means until we're back on our feet. And when the work is done, we will help the world forget the horror we have faced in the past few months. But right now, the big job is still ahead of us. We are continuing to build upon our weapons containment experiments. We are learning more every day about SCP-6004, and we are getting closer to the answers we need. I just need you to dig deep and do your part in bringing this thing down. Yes, it has shrugged off all our efforts thus far, and yes, it is attacking settlements on the global scale right now. But now the veil is down. We don't have to pull our punches anymore, we can throw all we have at it. We can take what we have learned in this document, forge it into a weapon, and use it to win. Expansion of SCP-6004's area of activity. In the weeks following destruction of Sydney, Australia, SCP-6004 went on to not only attack all other major Australian settlements, but extend its range into Asia, Europe, Africa, and Antarctica, where it behaved similarly. While the Foundation and GOC did make hundreds of attempts to stop, incapacitate, neutralize, or otherwise contain SCP-6004 through various means, it continued to attack settlements with impunity, with the death toll believed to be in the billions. Worldwide, SCP-6004 has now lowered the global average temperature by 0.7 degrees Celsius, replenished glacial and polar ice, and refilled depleted lake and river systems. Much of the world's deforestation has been reversed, and dozens of species of wildlife have been declared no longer endangered or extinct. It's estimated that over 40% of human metropolitan areas, over 60,000 population, have been rendered uninhabitable within SCP-6004's area of effect, and relocated projects have been made a priority. Due to SCP-6004's targeting of dams, coal-fired plants in large cities, numerous temporary solar power arrays and nuclear power plants have been erected worldwide to cope with power demands, and both the Foundation and Global Occult Coalition have resorted to anomalous means of food production and to aid in the supply of rations for the refugees. The handling of governments worldwide has been a priority, as many nations move to defend themselves from SCP-6004 militarily. The Global Occult Coalition has volunteered to use its United Nations channels to manage the issue, with the focus being on ensuring global government's priority is on rescue and shelter civilians, rather than bolstering military forces, which has thus far proven ineffective at best, provocative at worst. While immediate suppression was possible in the weeks immediately following the emergence of SCP-6004, albeit extremely difficult, the expanding area subjected to SCP-6004's attacks has made it impossible to conceal the truth from the eyes of the world. As of now, the veil of secrecy is to be considered broken, and no further efforts to conceal the essence of SCP-6004 are being made, as this has been deemed a waste of Foundation resources. It is hoped that the lower global population may aid in global anesthetization programs in the event that SCP-6004 be successfully contained or neutralized. Addendum 6000-4. The following table has been made for the purpose of determining the pattern of behavior in regards to SCP-6004. For the sake of brevity, hundreds of examples have been omitted, with more data to be added as events unfold. Location: Canberra, Australia. Direct attack. SCP-6004 landed in the city and rapidly struck it with its mouth, accompanied by hurricane-force winds and thunderstorms. Death toll is around 197,728. SCP-6004 appeared to target Parliament House in particular, a trend seen reflected in subsequent attacks on capital cities. Location: Sydney, Australia. Environmental attack. SCP-6004 remained in the clouds, only striking the ground occasionally while tsunamis flooded the city. Severe winds and storms also in effect. Death toll was around 3,129,428. The offices and major mining companies and oil companies were specifically targeted with physical strikes from SCP-6004, as was the Rush Cutter's Bay. Temperate forest rapidly took hold following the event. Location: Hong Kong, People's Republic of China. Direct attack following in multiple days of severe storms and monsoons. SCP-6004 dropped its tail into the sea and swept multiple massive waves at Hong Kong Island before landing in its entire mass between Hong Kong Island and Kowloon. Death toll is around 6,284,300. Multiple waves were reported to have exceeded 200 meters in height. Despite the thoroughness of the attack, multiple skyscrapers remain standing. Location: RLC, Kazakhstan/Uzbekistan. This is refilled by rainstorms over a period of months. The death toll is only about 9. Lightning strikes and flood damage caused most of the Soviet irrigation systems responsible for the drainage of the RLC to be destroyed, allowing water flow to return to pre-Soviet routes. Great Pacific Garbage Patch. A perpetual rainstorm has formed over the area. Plastics and other debris hit by rain are observed to transform into multiple different forms of marine life. It's estimated that the garbage patch will have been reduced to a negligible size by 2022. Three Gorges Dam, People's Republic of China. Direct attack. SCP-6004 directly struck at the dam from the air multiple times, destroying the entire structure. Death toll was around 406,184,000. Following the impact, 37 billion cubic meters of water flowed down the Yangtze River, with widespread flooding in Hubei, Hunan, Jinxi, Anhui, Jinsao, and the Zhejiang provinces. Shaanxi City, Zhezhou Dam, Zaicheng, Jingyan, Wuhan, Nanjing, and Shanghai were all destroyed. Despite multiple attempts to drain prior to the attack, the perpetual thunderstorms to the north caused by SCP-6004 caused the dam's reservoir to be extremely full. Taichung Power Plant, Taiwan. Multiple lightning strikes entered the plant, causing a series of steam explosions. Death toll is unknown. The precise nature of the rapid lightning strike suggested that SCP-6004 is able to understand the plant's functions by unknown means. Mount Kenya glaciers, Kenya. All 11 glaciers atop Mount Kenya began expanding rapidly at the same time as SCP-6004 awoke. Death toll is 0. It's estimated that all glaciers will return to pre-1890 levels before 2030. Mayotte Production Association, Russia. SCP-6004 approached the Mayotte facility via the Checha River before emerging and physically attacking and swallowing multiple structures, including multiple disused nuclear reactors and waste storage tanks. Thunderstorms caused rapid plant growth. Death toll unknown. Following this attack, Foundation investigation has discovered that nuclear contamination in the region has reduced drastically. Sahel region, North Africa. Long periods of rainstorms formed over the region, triggering enormously rapid plant growth and soil revitalization. SCP-6004 directly struck several communities, following and transfiguring the inhabitants into wildlife. Death toll was around 933,000. An area of around 650,000 square kilometers that had previously been seriously affected by desertification reverted to semi-tropical forests and bushlands. Lake Chad was seen to be greatly replenished. Congo Basin, Central Africa. Widespread reforestation as a result of SCP-6004's rainstorms. Multiple settlements within the area previously within forest boundaries were attacked and occupants transfigured into endangered wildlife. Death toll was around 48,500,000. An area of 148,640 square kilometers has been converted to rainforest in the Democratic Republic of the Congo alone. Numerous endangered and previously extinct animals have been reported to be inhabiting the area in large numbers. Eastern Australian temperate forests / grazing lands, Australia. SCP-6004 directly attacked grazing lands over a period of several weeks, consuming over 70 million livestock animals before rainstorms triggered the growth of native flora to form in the temperate forests. Death toll is around 300,000. Wildlife regurgitated by SCP-6004 in this area has primarily been previously extinct animals, and has drastically changed the local environment. The presence of numerous specimens of carnivorous megafauna in the area has rendered the area to be unlikely to be resettled in the future. Antarctica. SCP-6004 flew over much of Antarctica, causing increased snowfall, causing increased auroras over the northern pole. Increased snowfall resulted in the reformation of approximately 3 trillion tons of ice. SCP-6004 was seen to circle Mount Sidley for 19 days. The reason for this is currently unknown despite Foundation investigation. Banguela, Belize, Lobito Tobacco Oil Platform, Republic of Angola. SCP-6004 directly attacked the platform from below the surface of the sea, physically pulling it beneath the surface and repeatedly slamming it into the seafloor. Structure remnants rapidly converted into coral reefs over the following months. Death toll was around 17. It is theorized that the immense pressure generated by SCP-6004's body mass crushing the station was effectively plugged in the oil well. Oat Teddy Mine, Papua New Guinea. Rainforests formed over the mine pit and surrounding areas did not cause plant growth, instead detoxifying soil and contaminated by mining waste. SCP-6004 approaches the mine via the Fly River and later the Oak-Teddy River, swallowing much of the contaminated riverbed. SCP-6004 then emerged and proceeded to fill in the mine with surrounding earth before departing. Death toll was around 13,237. Rainforest withdrew in that area following the attack. Pollution levels in the Oak-Teddy and Fly Rivers has dropped to nearly zero. Malagrada Landfill, Italy. Thunderstorms over the landfill, with the rains diverting much of the waste into fungus, trees, and insects. A large portion of waste was converted into wasps and trees, resulting in vastly increased natural population. Ganges River, India. SCP-6004 physically enters the Ganges Delta via the Bay of Bengal, attacking numerous settlements before swimming up to the river at low speed over the course of 24 days. It was observed to have its mouth open, with its lower jaw scraping the riverbed and swallowing it, with its entire mass filling the river. SCP-6004 repeatedly attacked the structures and settlements on the banks of the river. Multiple dams were destroyed, millions of people were consumed. Notably, SCP-6004 did not harm the Ganja Mahapasha during this attack. Death toll was around 250,500,000. Military forces repeatedly attempted to intercept SCP-6004 but were either ignored or crushed by SCP-6004 following its departure. The Ganges River was found to be clean and heavily populated by fish and dolphins. Tanzania Wilderness, Tanzania. Rainfall over the area was reported similar to other areas affected by SCP-6004, but induced changes in the local wildlife. Animals killed by human activities such as poaching and trophy hunting were observed to recover, in some cases multiple times. Death toll is unknown, but estimated to be between 319,000. Following wildlife recovery, massively increased aggression towards humans has been observed. Numerous reports of lions, leopards, hyenas, and elephant attacks occurring daily. Himalayan Mountain River, Himalayan Range, Asia. Glacial expansion coinciding with the awakening of SCP-6004, rainfall rapidly reintroduced forests into areas affected by deforestation, and multiple settlements converted to wildlife with similar aggression and regenerative capabilities, exceeding Tanzania, Siberia, and the Ganges. Death toll is around 28 million. Numerous reports of SCP-1000 sightings in the region have been reported following the attacks by SCP-6004. Tanah Merah Palm Oil Project, Indonesia. Thunderstorms formed over the entire region occupied by the Tanah Merah Project, as well as numerous other palm oil plantations, caused native vegetation to rapidly grow at area exceeding 280,000 hectares. Native vegetation grown in this way was seen actively strangling introduced oil palms. SCP-6004 was observed to strike at workers in these plantations from the air, consuming them. Death toll was around 4,800. These areas were frequently visited by SCP-6004 for the purpose of regurgitating consumed individuals in the form of native wildlife. Incident 6004, Beijing. Following the destruction of the Three Gorges Dam, foundation plants with the Chinese government reported significant unrest within the party. There was immediate mobilization of military assets not affected by the floods under the name of preparedness. Despite attempted foundation intervention, much of China's military resources were relocated to Beijing, including at least 80 nuclear weapons. Multiple attempts were made by both the Foundation and the Global Occult Coalition diplomats to encourage the CCP from antagonizing or engaging SCP-6004, citing the failure of India's military during the Ganges attacks and potential fallout, but failed to make progress and were eventually barred from discussion with the Chinese government. Multiple plans remained within the party and continued to relay information to the Foundation/use the Alliance. Rather than use further resources attempting to negotiate with China, it was determined that the Foundation would continue to prioritize the attempted containment of SCP-6004 and the development of Project Mongoose. At 4:23 p.m., the October 27, 2020, Foundation satellites detected SCP-6004 was airborne and approaching the Jinshi metropolitan region. Shortly afterwards, Site 40 received the following message from Agent Zhao Wei, who was embedded within the government. The Intelligence Bureau has spotted SCP-6004 approaching Beijing, and a state of emergency has been declared. The party is in a state of panic. The military is on high alert and officials are talking about nuclear weapons. Please advise. Agent Zhao Wei was advised to attempt to discourage the use of nuclear weapons, and it was decided that an early prototype for Project Mongoose would be diverted to the South China Sea via the SCPS Indominus, an attempt to incapacitate SCP-6004 before it could arrive in the Jingji metropolitan region. It was theorized that despite operating at 37% of the capacity of the projected output of the finished weapon, the prototype would be able to induce a unconsciousness or a deep state within SCP-6004. Covered military footage. Camera feed shows a battalion of soldiers readying to attack outside the city of Lhasa. Multiple artillery and rocket launchers and rocket launch platforms can be seen. It is raining heavily. Lightning frequently illuminates the scene. SCP-6004 can be seen approaching the southwest with a cloud over approximately 8 kilometers away. A sergeant can be seen in the foreground on radio, requesting Air Force support. SCP-6004 is head dips below the clouds as it approaches. It visibly shifts appearance to resemble different species of amphibians simultaneously. It roars loudly. Multiple rocket platforms appear to be ready. The sergeant gestures to several soldiers and points at SCP-6004, which is rapidly approaching. Multiple gunships enter frame, approaching SCP-6004 and opening fire. SCP-6004 does not react and continues northeast. A gunship is forced to take evasive action as a coil of SCP-6004's body emerges from the cloud cover. SCP-6004's motion causes it to collide with the gunship, which detonates on impact. An order to fire can be heard from the sergeant's radio. 8 ballistic missiles are seen being launched from the ground, entering the cloud cover and detonating above the clouds. Multiple soldiers can be seen staring at the clouds. Some can be heard asking one another if SCP-6004 has been killed. SCP-6004 emerges from the clouds at high speeds, roaring, continuing northeast. Multiple lightning strikes hit the area, with most of the soldiers being killed instantly. Task Force operating at multiple Chinese Foundation sites were mobilized to aid in the evacuation of civilians across the projected path of SCP-6004. As the evacuations were carried out, numerous Chinese Air Force combatants were dispatched to attack SCP-6004. Multiple eyewitnesses reported SCP-6004 largely ignoring these attacks. SCP-6004 continued heading northeast towards Beijing, with widespread thunderstorms and anomalous plant growth following in its wake. Foundation and GOC forces began treatment and organization of evacuated civilians within various staging areas throughout China. Task Force 341, tasked in aiding the evacuation of Beijing, was halted by armed forces of the outskirts of the Jingji metropolitan region in order to exit the area. Despite multiple attempts at diplomacy, Task Force 341 was forced to withdraw. Upon exiting the area, they sent the following communication to Site 40. Evacuation of Beijing is impossible. The military has locked down the city on the orders of the General Security and has declared the Foundation to be enemies of the state. Advise all Foundation activity within Chinese borders to be carried out with caution. At this time, SCPS Indominus was approximately 40 minutes from the range of SCP-6004. Multiple reports of military attacks on the Foundation and GOC forces began to reach Site 40, and it was decided that all task force were to withdraw. This decision was met with resistance but was carried out. At 5:03 p.m., activity within northeast China had ceased, with all forces returning to their home sites with minimal losses. Satellite monitoring and local surveillance cameras showed SCP-6004 continuing to approach Beijing in spite of increasingly thick resistance from the military. At 5:09 p.m., the following communication was received by Agent Zhao Wei. "They're going to launch nuclear weapons. I can't stop them." Following this communication, the SCPS Indominus was ordered to fire the Mongoose prototype as soon as possible. The Indominus replied in the affirmative, estimating that they would be in range within 12 minutes. Video log, Incident 6004- October 27, 2020. At 5:14 p.m., SCP-6004 reached the outskirts of the Jingji metropolitan region. The following events were recorded by numerous Foundation and civilian cameras and satellites. Begin log. 5:14 p.m., air raid sirens sound out over the cities and civilians remain in the streets and be seen fleeing indoors. A very large storm front can be seen approaching from the southwest with SCP-6004 in it. Multiple military aircraft are engaged into no effect. Thunderstorms rapidly form over the entire region. Heavy rain begins to fall, and large masses of vegetation from the ground and architecture of the cities causing massive structural damages. Numerous lightning bolts repeatedly striking multiple skyscrapers. Site 40 relays command to SCP-6000. Site 40 command relays SCP-6004's arrival to the SCPS Indominus. The Indominus continues its approach. At 5:15 p.m., SCP-6004 coils above the city of Baoding and observes the city. Lightning strikes cease. At 5:16, SCP-6004 strikes at Baoding, destroying several skyscrapers. It rises before hitting the ground and proceeds to straight the ground with its mouth, forcing numerous vehicles and structures down its throat. Multiple CCTV cameras show that civilians falling into the throat, which does not appear different from that of non-anomalous snates. SCP-6004 fully reaches the ground and proceeds to slowly circle the city, moving in a spiral as it swallows terrain and buildings. Some buildings are spared, with CCTV footage showing SCP-6004 passing through them harmlessly. At 5:17 p.m., military aircraft begin bombing runs on SCP-6004. Multiple bombs detonate on its back with no effect. Aircraft seem to deliberately ram into the eye of SCP-6004, detonating violently. SCP-6004 fails to notice and continues the consumption of Baoding. At 5:18, multiple tornadoes and lightning bolts strike sites within the Jinji metropolitan region, continuing on past around the area, targeting skyscrapers in particular. SCP-6004 finishes consuming Baoding and rears its head into the air, ignoring the efforts of the Air Force. It turns to face Beijing before pushing off the remains of Baoding and rapidly approaching the city. At 5:20 p.m., the Air Force retreats from SCP-6004 in Beijing. The SCPS Indominus reports it will be in range of SCP-6004 in 70 seconds. Numerous sirens sound within within Beijing as SCP-6004 approaches. And a recording of China's head of state plays over the citywide loudspeakers, stating the following: "Better for Beijing to fall than all of China be overrun." 5:21 p.m., SCPS Indominus reports to Site 40 Command that SCP-6004 is now within range of the Mongoose prototype and requests permission to fire. Multiple simultaneous launches are detected from within China. Satellite imaging identifies these launches as being 12 nuclear warheads. Tornadoes and lightning strikes continue to ravage the area, with large masses of vegetation forming over the ruins. At 5:22 p.m., 12 nuclear warheads simultaneously strike SCP-6004 on multiple lengths of its body and head, 43 kilometers southwest of Beijing. The resulting blasts are estimated to have yield ranging from 5 to 16 megatons, causing SCP-6004 to recoil. Multiple windows within a 68-kilometer radius shatter. SCPS Indominus reports sighting of a flash of light from the direction of Beijing rainfall. Tornadoes and lightning strikes cease in the area, as the upper portion of SCP-6004 is obscured by mushroom clouds. O5 Command orders the SCPS Indominus to charge the Mongoose prototype. Onboard cameras show the barrels of the Mongoose aimed towards SCP-6004, and the device begins to emit a green light and high-pitched wailing vocalizations. At 5:23 p.m., SCP-6004 roars and rears its head above Beijing. Its head and much of its body is aflame, but it does not display any sign of damage or burning. SCP-6004 roars again and tosses its head violently, extinguishing the flames, before turning towards Beijing and bodily flinging itself at the city while roaring and emitting multicolored bolts of electricity at the capital, causing catastrophic damage. Thunderstorms, tornadoes, and winds of excess of 450 kilometers spontaneously form over the area, causing significant damage. 5:23 p.m., SCP-6004 strikes the ground repeatedly and thrashes its tail across the region, leaving multiple large craters. SCPS Indominus reports that the Mongoose prototype will be ready to fire shortly. Air Force fighter jets return and engages SCP-6004, with multiple aircraft deliberately colliding with it. SCP-6004 continues to strike the Earth, with numerous lightning bolts impacting the aircraft. Lava begins to emerge from multiple craters as a result from SCP-6004 strikes. Project Mongoose technicians aboard the SCPS Indominus begin the firing sequence. The prototype begins boiling more intensely, emitting flashes of dark green light. At 5:25 p.m., the last remaining aircraft retreat from SCP-6004. At 5:28 p.m., SCP-6004 ceases ejecting to the ground and surveys the area. Tornadoes and lightning storms dissipate, and vegetation begins to form in areas unaffected by the emergence of lava. The entirety of Beijing and the surrounding area has been entirely demolished, with no structures surviving. SCP-6004 begins to roar and vocalize repeatedly. Project Mongoose technicians report that the project is ready to fire. O5 Commander has permission to fire. At 5:29 p.m., Project Mongoose fires once at the entity's coordinates are confirmed. The crew of SCPS Indominus lost upon activation. A large, sustained beam comprised of fires from Project Mongoose, accompanied by intense screaming sound. Satellite visuals are lost as a result from the weapon's firing. At 5:30 p.m., a fault occurs within the Mongoose prototype, causing an energy failure and cessation of fire and vocalization. Satellite visuals are regained as the weapon's vocalizations cease. Entity appears to have taken notice of the beam. At 5:31 p.m., SCP-6004 rapidly propels itself into cloud cover, visibly tracking the Mongoose beam as it passes and impacts the Jeonju Mountains, destroying approximately 32 square kilometers. The entity emits a low vocalization and approaches for the SCPS Indominus, entering the South China Sea and raising its head out of the water to inspect the Project Mongoose prototype for the following 4 minutes before submerging itself beneath the surface and leaving the area. End of log. Following the departure of SCP-6004 from the area, no search and rescue operations were carried out in the Jinji metropolitan region. The death toll from this incident is estimated to be in excess of 140 million. Investigations into the former site of Beijing show the formation of 3 fault lines, previously undiscovered species of flora and fauna, and masses of human remains. SCP-6004 was tracked to the Pacific Ocean before being lost in deep waters. After a period of several hours, it was deemed to be safe for the SCPS Indominus and Project Mongoose prototype to be recovered by the Foundation, with further research and development to be carried out. Project Mongoose, an overview. Following the emergence of SCP-6004, multiple attempts at containment were made. Conventional means were quickly proven useless, and shortly afterwards, so were even high-level Foundation devices. Headcore bounced off its side, Class Sigma autocannon fire passed through it. Strengthened reality anchor derived from devices had no effect. The key units also had proved so effective against LSAs were, at best, bulldozed, and at worst, totally ignored. In short, the Foundation needed a new weapon. Whether it would allow for SCP-6004's containment or neutralization was deemed irrelevant. To this end, the Foundation reached out to the Global Occult Coalition, whose prowess at killing anomalous entities was famed, feared, and even hated throughout the anomalous community. Given the highly visible nature of SCP-6004, the GOC was already aware of its entity and were working towards neutralization. They were receptive towards a collaboration, and development soon began on Site-19 in the GOC Advanced Weaponry Facility in Colorado, USA. Numerous resources were used, both mundane and anomalous. As SCP-6004 began to move over larger portions of the globe, development became increasingly desperate. Both Marshall Center, Dark Ltd., and the Church of the Broken God assets were recruited and used in the construction of the device. In addition to the combined resources of GOC and the Foundation, this collaboration led to what is now known as Project Mongoose, a long-range charged particle emitter that draws on thaumaturgical and reverse-siphoned human energies to produce a devastating directed blast. It was agreed that the GOC would manufacture the charged particle emitter, while the Foundation would manufacture the barrel and focusing rings necessary to amplify and control the beam. Specialists from the COTBG aided both parties with destruction of these elements. Each site produced a smaller prototype for the purposes of testing, with one of these prototypes being fired at SCP-6004 during Incident 6004 Beijing. As of November 23, 2020, SCP-6004 has expanded its area of operation to encompass the entire globe. Multiple attacks within the Americas are already being reported daily. Project Mongoose has been completed. Due to the prototype's charge sequence causing the annihilation of all life forms within a 444-meter distance of it, all components have been mounted aboard a GOC-class Lincoln satellite and launched into orbit, from which it would be fired remotely. Due to the immense energy requirements and complex reactions, the orbital launch Mongoose requires 444 sessions of fire after the rotation has been locked. As such, it is now the Foundation responsibility to fire orbital Project Mongoose at SCP-6004 when an opportunity arises, with all efforts being made to create such a window of opportunity. SCP-6004 Global Behavior Patterns. Following Incident 6004 Beijing, SCP-6004 was not seen for a period of 9 days, remaining submerged in the world's oceans. An overall improvement in the health of coral reefs was detected, and numerous vessels were lost at sea in hurricanes and squalls. At this time, remaining governments have taken shelter in subterranean bunkers, and a joint effort between the Foundation and GOC has been working towards relocating in safety housing of survivors of the attack to the entity, with both organizations producing food, medicine, and power via anomalous means. During this time, SCP-6004 was detected near the Arctic ice pack. Packed ice to be seen thickening and expanding with the naked eye, returning to pre-1948 levels within 2 days. It then proceeded to circle an area slightly outside the Arctic Circle and portions of northern Siberia, Canada, and Alaska, consuming large portions of livestock and humans. Reports of flora and fauna lost during the Quaternary extinction event appeared within these areas were proven correct through multiple satellite images. Glaciation rates of this area had increased to a large degree, in some cases expanding over towns in the subterranean Foundation site. Despite multiple attempts to target SCP-6004 with orbital Project Mongoose, the entity proved too mobile for a lock to be made. SCP-6004 then shifted its focus to the Americas, causing widespread rainstorms, plant growth, and reintroduction of endangered and extinct species coinciding with the mass disappearance of civilian populations within densely populated cities throughout much of South America, with a particularly large portion of time and activity centered on the Amazon rainforest. The entity was observed to move over much of the Americas, changing direction seemingly random but following the established pattern of starting in large urban centers and environmentally damaged installations. Of note, the entity was first observed to actively engage with military forces by roaring and vocalizing at them before striking them with lightning. The attack took place over a 40-minute period where it proceeded to consume large portions of the city. Attempts to evacuate the U.S. President and staff failed when the Presidential Emergency Operations Center was flooded when SCP-6004 caused the Potomac River to flood much of the city ruins. SCP-6004 continued its fashion over to the United States, Mexico, and Canada, striking particularly hard at cities such as Toronto, Los Angeles, Mexico City, New York City, Ottawa, and LA. And La Paz, Enormous stretches of land were converted to forest by anomalous rainfall generated by SCP-6004, with large numbers of people and animals being consumed and regurgitated by the entity. Of note, disruption to the United States power grid by SCP-6004 triggered the cascade failures of numerous nuclear power plants, necessitating Foundation and GOC intervention to prevent multiple nuclear meltdowns from occurring. Foundation historians and archaeologists have conducted extensive research into Australian Aboriginal mythology, particularly in regards to the rainbow serpent. It is now believed that the oral Dreamtime stories passed down over millennia refer to confrontations with SCP-6004, and that the entity has attacked humanity before. These attacks have been preceded by periods of environmental instability and were often resolved by various rituals, abandonment of environmentally damaging practices, or in some cases by guardian spirits, engaging the rainbow serpent in battle. Should Project Mongoose fail, the Foundation must consider influencing a significant shift in the way modern civilization functions as to not draw the attention of SCP-6004 until containment becomes possible. The prospect of seeking out one of these protector spirits to intervene on behalf of the Foundation is also being considered. At this state, SCP-6004's range is to be considered global. Foundation and GOC political ambassadors are encouraging world governments to limit military activity and move their populations outside of urban areas. Areas not targeted by SCP-6004 have been prioritized temporary resettlement locations, and efforts are being made to safely provide housing for the worst population without drawing attention of SCP-6004. Activation of Project Mongoose. After a period of 49 days over the Americas with no opportunity to activate orbital Project Mongoose, SCP-6004 began displaying interest in numerous Foundation and GOC facilities. The entity would often circle sites, but not approach for unknown reasons. It was during one of these events on December 24, 2020 that SCP-6004 began examining Global Coalition Advanced Weaponry Facility, one of the two locations where Project Mongoose was developed. At 4:37 p.m., SCP-6004 began to investigate the Advanced Weapons Facility, exhibiting signs of agitation. Satellite imaging showed the facility enter lockdown, with multiple weapons platforms being activated. It was at this time that the O5 Council voted 8-5 to fire Orbital Project Mongoose upon both SCP-6004 and the Advanced Weapons Facility. The following is the log of the ensuing events. Video log. Date, December 24, 2020. The following events were captured via satellite imagery aboard various Foundation monitoring satellites as well as cameras mounted on the Orbital Project Mongoose satellite platform. Begin log. 4:38 p.m. SCP-6004 can be seen circling the GOC Advanced Weapons Facility on the ground, appearing increasingly agitated. The AWF has initiated lockdown, with multiple weapons platforms tracking the entity. Of note is Project Mongoose prototype, which appears to be charged and ready to fire. At 4:38 p.m., Orbital Project Mongoose is activated and begins its charging sequence. Guidance rails and focusing range to be seen moving into position as the burrow system aims at both the AWF and SCP-6004. Green light and alien vocalizations begin emitting from the device, causing numerous visual glitches and illusions to appear on the footage acquired from the onboard cameras. GOC access to Orbital Project Mongoose is blocked. At 4:39 p.m., GOC attempts to contact Site 19 but are ignored. Multiple attempts to access Project Mongoose are detected and blocked. Diplomatic ambassadors are sent to meeting sites to ensure GOC cooperation. SCP-6004 vocalizes loudly and continues circling the site, seeming to direct its vocalizations towards the AWF. At 4:40 p.m., movement from SCP-6004 causes a portion of the AWF's exterior to separate from the surrounding mountainside, resulting in an unidentified weapon platform mounted to this region to fire prematurely. Projectile impacts SCP-6004's tail and detonates violently, but causes no damage to the entity. SCP-6004 ceases vocalizing at the AWF for a moment before roaring and coiling back in distracting position. Multiple weapons begin firing at the entity, and numerous shielding devices can be seen activating. Wind speeds immediately increase drastically, and rainstorms spontaneously generate. At 4:31 p.m., Project Mongoose begins emitting pulses of energy as it enters its criticality stage. SCP-6004 strikes at the AWF, destroying a large portion of the mountainside, which the site is housed in. The AWF Mongoose prototype fires at SCP-6004 with a sustained beam following the entity's movements. The beam can be seen visibly irritating SCP-6004 skin upon contact, causing it to recoil and dodge in the beam, vocalizing loudly and staring at the prototype. At 4:42 p.m., multiple energy pulses are seen emitting from the AWS Mongoose prototype, annihilating all vegetation within 200 meters of the weapon. Multiple lightning bolts strike at the site, but are redirected by GOC shield generators. SCP-6004 attempts to fling large portions of earth and rock towards the Mongoose prototype with its tail, but unsuccessful due to the site's shielding system. SCP-6004 continues to move evasively. Following several seconds of uninterrupted contact from Mongoose prototype, SCP-6004 emits a stream of multicolored energy from its mouth towards the prototype, causing it to misfire and re-enter its charging phase. SCP-6004 proceeds to wrap around the mountain and strike down at the Mongoose prototype, resulting in a massive energy discharge. This discharge is largely negated by the remaining shielded devices. 4:43 p.m., Orbital Project Mongoose readies to fire. At 4:44 p.m., SCP-6004 continues to strike at the AWF, breaching the top of the facility. GOC operatives can be seen within attempting to evacuate the facility, with some directing small arms fire at the entity. SCP-6004 recoils back in preparation for another strike. Orbital Project Mongoose fires a sustained beam, with resultant vocalizations being heard surrounding satellites in a 44-kilometer radius of the AWF. SCP-6004 raises its head towards the noise and is engulfed in the beam along with the AWF. The beam's impact instantly annihilates the AWF with the weapon's energy flood and its fuel disintegrating all life forms within a 444-kilometer distance. Orbital Project Mongoose ceases firing on the orders of the O5 Council, and the GOC, AWF, and surrounding mountains have been completely destroyed, with a large crater having been formed by the beam's impact. SCP-6004 can be seen within the crater and surrounding areas of devastation, displaying moderate burns over much of its body. SCP-6004 rises from the ashes, rises from the ground and roars, thrashing its head and tail as lightning emits from multiple points on its body and burns to its steel heal rapidly. Rainfall and wind speeds intensifies, and the entity begins to rapidly expand and coil around itself, looking upwards. Visual contact is lost as storm clouds thicken. O5 Council ordered Orbital Project Mongoose to fire again. Orbital Project Mongoose fires a second sustained beam at SCP-6004, clearing much of the generated storm clouds. SCP-6004 can be seen struggling against the beam and coiling on the ground before rapidly launching itself upwards. SCP-6004's head approaches the Orbital Project Mongoose. Firing ceases automatically as proximity sensors detect an imminent collision with the entity. SCP-6004 proceeds to grab Project Mongoose with the Project Mongoose satellite platform with its mouth, causing catastrophic damage to Mongoose before falling back down to the upper troposphere and rapidly approaching Site-19. End log. Following the failure of Project Mongoose, all contact with Site-19 was lost. Later assessment discovered that the upper levels of the site have suffered catastrophic damage, in keeping with SCP-6004's pattern of devastation. The upper 6 levels have been strangled by extremely robust vegetation. The majority of the structure's upper floors have been displaced, with the remains of Project Mongoose largely annihilated. Multiple safe and nuclear glass SCP objects have breached containment, either being destroyed in the event or still currently missing. The lower levels of the site remain uncompromised. Rescue efforts following the attack were able to evacuate % of the surviving staff. The following statement was provided by site technician Wagner. I was working on a fast access cart down in the Euclid block. All the lights went red and the alarms were going off, so I rode from the underneath and started running to the shelters. You know, pretty standard stuff. I thought it was containment breach, yeah. And then the banging and explosion started, and it felt like an earthquake. Everything was shaking. We could hear the upper levels caving in. Even. I was so busy looking at the supports I didn't watch my feet. Then I fell. I trampled pretty bad. The bulkhead shut before I could get into the shelter and I was fucked. I ran down to the workshop and there was an LSA attached vehicle in there with shit brakes. I jumped in, held my hands over my ears, and watched the security feed before me as it went down. It felt like I was watching the end of the world. That fucking snake had crushed the whole eastern compound, turned a satellite or some shit into the admin ward. All the guns and missiles were unloading onto it. It was trying to put out a wildfire with a water balloon. I screamed at. I saw it stream on the video. I heard it all the way down. 24 floors down. Ruptured both my eardrums. Then I started blasting off with rainbow lightning. The feed cut and the roof collapsed. Water started pouring in and I thought I was going to drown. Glad I started draining down to one of the lower levels. I could hear the people in the bunker screaming. Something had gotten in there with them. I don't know. I don't want to know what. Just like that, there was another quake that had gone. MTFs rolled in not long after, rescued us, who survived, and started getting the skips back into their cells. Heard a lot of D-class guys helping with the rescuing. I'm glad I didn't try to just get us down to the rest of the site. Following rescue and excavation efforts, it was determined through witnesses and interviews at the GOC that SCP-6004 had attacked Site-19 largely through the use of the same energy seen in Beijing, and the GOC AWF throwing Orbital Project Mongoose into the site's administrative wing, and being physically landing on the eastern compound before striking the main site. This was confirmed by the recovery of the Guardian AI log, which documented the AI's attempts to defend the site from SCP-6004. Addendum 6004-5 Guardian AI log. Threat detected. SCP-6004 approaching site. Arrival imminent. Secondary threat detected. Project Mongoose weapons platform. Damaged. Calculating. Site destruction probability. 96%. Defenses engaged. Shield strength 100%. Ammunition reserves 98%. Distress signal engaged. Calculating. Alert sounded. Projected staff survival rate 23%. Containment wings sealed. Target systems locked. Firing. All weapon systems firing. Calculating. Imminent attack detected. SCP-6004. Electrical projectile attack. Shield strength 0. Shields offline. Estimated casualties 18,000 plus. Impact detection East Wing. Estimated casualties 48,000 plus. Structures damaged. Transport depot. Staff bearers. Cafeteria. East Wing Scientific Development. East Wing Armory. Threat detected. Project Mongoose weapons platform damaged. Launched via SCP-6004. Projected damage. Surface administrative building. Weapon system engaged threat. Negative. Risk of triggering point Mongoose energy pulse. Threat detected. Flash flooding entering site. Surface administrative building. Estimated casualties 51,000 plus. Structures damaged. Surface administrative building. Impact detection. SCP-6004 electrical projectile attack. Affected area of site. Surface 87%. Affected area of site. Subterranean 39%. Calculating. Weapon system offline. Safe class containment wing compromised. Mutual class containment wing compromised. Keter class containment wing compromised. Calculating. Threat detected. Imminent physical strike from SCP-6004 upon main structure. Reverse power redirection. Kinetic shields. Kinetic shield power 493%. Impact detected. Central containment structure. Kinetic shields offline. Structures damaged. Level 26 through Site 19. Safe class containment wing. Mutual class containment wing. Keter class containment wing. Research wings 0 to 263. Engineering wings 0 to 96. Estimated casualties 273,000. Threat detected. Multiple containment breaches. SCP objects breached. SCP-173. SCP-939. SCP-131. SCP-312. SCP-058. Threat detected. Flooding of lower levels. Threat detected. Loss of power to Guardian AI mainframe. Estimated remaining operational time 28 seconds. Calculating. Redirecting power. Recontainment and security systems. Estimated remaining operational time 19 seconds. Containment wings sealed. Personnel shelters active. Calculating. Remaining operational time 12 seconds. Drainage systems activated. Threat departure. SCP-6004 exiting area. Estimated operational time remaining 4 seconds. Auxiliary Guardian AI power rerouted to auto doctor stations. Calculating. Goodbye, friends. Be safe. Power lost. Word from Director Alan Tabal's January 15, 2021. These have been some very hard months. Entire cities were annihilated, countries damn near depopulated. Sites lost, anomalies escaped, truces made broken, friends and family and loved ones we'll never see again were killed or turned into animals. The veil's gone. Foundation's resources have been drained on a failed project, and the world as we knew it is pretty much over. But so are the attacks. SCP-6004 has revisited the site of its awakening. It hasn't hit a single city in weeks. The rain has stopped making forest. There is hope now, light at the end of the tunnel. This thing's going to sleep. We have excellent leads on how to keep it that way. We will ensure it never wakes again. We have a lot of work to do. A new world to make, towns, cities and sites to rebuild, new facilities to build, full of new means and production for food and materials, billions of people to anesthetize, history books to rewrite, and effectively a whole new world to create. Luckily, it isn't the first time we've done this, and likely not the last. We can do this. You can do this. It will likely be the hardest thing you will do for us, but I promise you it will be worth it. Site 40 Director, Alan Tibballs. Proposed revisions to SCP-6004 containment procedures. Following the discovery of the core nature of SCP-6004 through the Aboriginal rock art, extensive research into the history of SCP-6004, interviews with various communities, and observed behavior of the entity throughout its period of activity, it has been determined that SCP-6004 is able to be contained through a rigorous, intensive reordering of global human development practices, along with the development of tools capable of inducing sleep in entities of similar scope to SCP-6004. The Foundation must influence human civilization in a way that as to encourage a lack of outward expansion into wilderness areas, increase adoption of clean energy such as solar, wind, and nuclear, and reduce reliance on unsatiable farming. In an effort to maintain societal progression, the Foundation and other organizations such as the Global Coalition will be required to anonymously produce livestock, construction materials, and other amenities to reduce land usage. Cities and townships will be encouraged to advance via subterranean and vertical expansion, and total expansion into wilderness areas has to be determined on a case-by-case basis, but overall limited to 30%. Current Foundation efforts towards rebuilding settlements, rehousing the refugees, and re-establishing power to affected areas have already lent themselves into these efforts. Areas not targeted by SCP-6004 were naturally selected to house refugees, but at no point did the entity attach solar and wind farms, leading to more widespread use out of convenience. Nuclear power was similarly used. It is believed that these sites and power sources will be ideal launching pads for the implementation of these proposed containment measures, and numerous locations suitable for the development of further cities, towns, and Foundation complexes have already been identified. These measures are extreme and will require the cooperation of both the world governments and groups of interest, but in the face of SCP-6004 returning, they are warranted until such a time as the Foundation is able to fully contain the entity. Reduction in SCP-6004 hostility. Post-2021 behavior of SCP-6004 by Dr. Kate Lloyd. Since the conclusion of 2021, SCP-6004 has displayed significantly less aggressive tendencies when compared to earlier behaviors. It is hypothesized that this is due to two main contributing factors: that the revised containment procedures have appeased the entity, and that it has essentially achieved the majority of its goals following its awakening. Each of these factors are evidenced by several observations and statements based on these factors that in SCP-6004's continued behavior. It is projected the entity will soon return to a sleep state. Effectiveness of revised containment procedures. Towards the end of 2021, the Foundation implemented revised containment procedures designed to appease SCP-6004 based on the Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime lore. Since the implementation of these new procedures, SCP-6004 has been significantly calmer. I've been observed ignoring multiple Foundation rebuilding efforts, not attacking a single human settlement, and appearing non-hostile during this time. The following examples point towards this behavior being the result of these revised containment procedures. On January 19, 2022, SCP-6004 arrived at Site 40 via the coast, raised its head from the sea, and observed a period for about 6 minutes. This was witnessed by Corporal Erwin Prosis of Survey Team 40, who was participating in the training exercise at the time. When I would ask for a summary of the event, he stated the following. I was holding up my log for the team when it came raised out of the sea. The whole time it was staring at the building. It was like it was looking at before it even came up. Everyone was scared. We heard about 19 in that GOC base. Thought I was here to do the same, but it didn't do anything. It was just here. It just stared at us. The base first, the power systems building, us training, the director out in the observation deck, a shitload of guns pointing at it. Everything was taking it all in. It felt like we were being judged, you know? You could feel it even more than you could see it. Then after a minute, it flicked out its tongue, turned around and swam away. In addition to the above, SCP-6004 has been observed spending a great deal of time at an area formerly housed in the GOC's Advanced Weapons Facility. Despite multiple attempts to dig out lake beds and river sites, the rain generated by the entity have failed to produce lakes, rivers, and trigger plant growth seen in other areas, with wildlife regurgitated by the entity all expiring within hours of placement. Previous models of SCP-6004's behavior suggest that such events would trigger violent outbursts from the entity, yet it has only responded by leaving the area. SCP-6004 then proceeds to the Amazon rainforest, where it remains for a further 3 days. Achievement of SCP-6004's goals. The other primary cause of SCP-6004's reduced hostility is likely a result of achieving its goals, primarily the reversion of the global environment to a state similar to that of pre-human habitation and the repopulation of various species endangered in the extinct flora and fauna. It has been observed as that global temperatures have fallen. 6004 has become less aggressive, The same can be said in regards to global wildlife and populations rising and the reduction of air pollution. Beyond a reduction in the number of tasks carried out by SCP-6004, it has also been observed that the entity has not caused the anomalous growth of vegetation or regurgitation of wildlife since the February 13, 2022. While attacks on human structures and settlements can be seen as expression of aggression on behalf of SCP-6004, the generations of forests, wildlife, lakes, and rivers are exclusively motivated by returning this environment to a pre-human state. The cessation of this behavior indicates the entity is satisfied with the current world state. Other behaviors of SCP-6004. Following its visitation to the Amazon rainforest, SCP-6004 has been sighted resting within large bodies of water multiple times. Its movements have become noticeably more sluggish, displaying signs of fatigue, including yawning. It has been heading in a consistently west-southwesterly direction, with predicted models placing it as heading towards the Wollemi National Park where it was first discovered. Barring unforeseen outcomes or revocation of SCP-6004, it is estimated that it will return to a state of discovery by late October 2022 and enter a period of hibernation. As such, Project Mongoose research is being utilized in the development of technologies capable of ensuring that SCP-6004 remains in hibernation, which will be installed in the location when ready. Following this, it's possible that the widespread use of amnestics in global populations may allow the Foundation to rebuild the veil of secrecy and resume its previous mission. Addendum 4000-6. Following the containment of SCP-6004, attacks on humans by wild animals have continued to be much more frequent than before its discovery. These attacks have universally occurred within newly formed wilderness areas and display of teamwork by capability of species involved, with some cases using the cooperation of multiple different species. However, these attacks have become less frequent as time progresses. Eyewitness statements have observed that where animal species would previously chase or attack an individual within the wilderness areas have been seen to more frequently observe people at a distance, often withdrawing after a short period of time. Attacks by these animals can be broadly categorized into 5 categories: rabid, provoked, defensive, predatory, and guided. The former 4 varieties are considered typical and not of Foundation concern, except in the 5th variety. Guided attacks are believed to occur under the influence of SCP-6004. The working theory is that SCP-6004 is in part or in whole responsible for this behavior, and it may involve lingering influence associated with its apparent desire to prevent human impact on natural environments. While attacks of this nature were previously observed to be immediate and coordinated, more recent encounters appear to have been limited to individuals who are in the process of activities discouraged by current containment procedures. Given the trend of observation before attack, it is believed that sustainable, low-impact activities within wilderness areas will soon be safe for the civilian population to engage in, along with low-impact construction. SCP-6004. The portion of the Wollemi National Park containing SCP-6004, a recently formed lake over a subterranean cavern with an approximate diameter of 450 meters, is to be restricted from public access. Under no circumstances may any civilian or governmental individuals enter the containment area. Should this occur, all persons involved are to be detained, questioned, and anesthetized before being released. A total of 27 Lloyd-Tibbals consciousness nullification devices have been installed around its perimeter of the containment area at a depth of between 4 and 28 meters in an effort to ensure SCP-6004 does not exit its hibernation. Provisional Site 6004 has been constructed with the containment area for the maintenance operation of the devices. To further ensure SCP-6004 does not breach containment, all Foundation is to continue to encourage world governments to limit expansion into wilderness areas. All human activity within these areas must be as non-destructive as possible. To ensure this, a new modern culture has adopted appropriate trends and practices under the covert guidance of the Foundation. A joint effort between the Foundation, Global Coalition, and the Mana Charitable Foundation has established to anonymously produce food, construction, and technological materials rendered impractical to produce conventionally by these containment procedures. SCP-6004 is an extremely large serpentine entity measuring approximately 700 kilometers in length and 10 to the power of 17 kilograms in weight. Currently in a state of hibernation within a submerged cavern located in the area of Wollemi National Park in SW, Australia. SCP-6004's appearance has noted to shift in the past. Currently resembles an extremely large common taipan with features of carpet python. Its coloration has consistently been primarily black with dull prismatic stripes running directly down its length, with a pale underbelly. SCP-6004 possesses a pair of curved bone or ivory horns far longer and more numerous teeth than what has been seen in non-anomalous snakes. Horns feature thousands of engraved depictions of wildlife. SCP-6004's physical abilities have been extensively observed in studies. It's capable of exceptionally rapid movement, up to 2,700 km per hour on land, and far greater in quieter airborne environments. This movement often creates large rifts in the terrain and tsunamis in the water. SCP-6004 exhibits strength and durability far beyond what its proportions would suggest, able to exert bioforces powerful to crush anomalously hardened bunkers, destroy mountains via bodily impact, or leap into the lower exosphere. It is able to fly within the upper troposphere in a similar fashion to swimming. Due to a paradoxical physiology, SCP-6004 is simultaneously tangible and intangible, which renders it largely impervious to any conventional physical harm, with only several minutes of concentrated fire by Project Mongoose having been able to superficially injure the entity. SCP-6004 displayed a compelling direct influence over the natural world up to and including a clear influence over the behavior of wild animals. During the latter parts of its previous activity, attacks by various large and small fauna on humans were common. These attacks often involve multiple disparate species working in tandem until apparently satisfied. Its behavior has been continued under specific circumstances after SCP-6004's hibernation, universally involving aggressive habitat expansion or activities such as recreational hunting acting as catalysts. It is extremely probable that any future conscious activity on part of SCP-6004 may lead to the extinction of human civilization. For this reason, for the survival of society, we must remain asleep. This video was a fucking pain in the ass to record. Like, my voice hurts so much right now. I've been recording for the past 2 fucking hours and I absolutely hate this shit. Yeah, bye now.